What's going on, everyone? My name is Zavage, and today we're going to be talking about something pretty important. We are currently just a little under 1 week through the launch of Archeage Unchained for some of the servers, not all of the servers. And there is a lot to talk about. There is a lot that has happened, and I want to do a little bit of a, my feedback, my point of view, my feelings about the current state of things regarding the game. Now, let me start off by saying that there are going to be good and bad things in this, all right? I don't want people to think that, oh, great, Zavage is making a video. He's just going to be talking about what an amazing job Gamigo is doing because he's a shill. No, I'm going to be actually very brutally critiquing Gamigo in this video. But I do want to start off with talking about some of the things that they have done well and have kept their word about. So some of the really nice things about this version of Archeage that people have been able to experience on this launch is that it's been very easy for new players to get into it. It's probably the most new player friendly version of the game that there's been, since the main story quest is very guiding in terms of what the gear is and how it progresses into Haram directly, which is endgame gear for a lot of people. That is good in that regard. Inversely, it's a little bit bad because it's taken away a lot of the sandbox elements of learning things, figuring things out, and all of those things that made Archeage so great back in the day with all the crafting and gathering. Another really good thing that's happened with this launch is the population. There are more people playing Archeage right now than there have been in the last 5 years since it first launched. That's a huge feat. That's a huge thing. It's great. But there are some problems with that population that are not so much the player's fault, and a little more on Gamigo's end, and we'll talk about that in a little bit later. The Arc Pass has pros and cons. I'm going to talk about the pros first. I'm going to be addressing some of the really egregious cons in a little bit with all the other bad stuff. The Arc Pass is nice in the form of it functioning as it is a decent way to consistently make gold, and I'm not just meaning the world boss 50 gold chain that goes on every day right now. I'm talking about just in general, all of the rewards give gold. It is a definitive source of making gold throughout your day completing these quests. Another thing that has been really good has been the servers. The servers have been very stable. Now, connection to the servers through the login screen, that's a little bit of a different story. Some people have been getting dropped in queues have frozen, things like that. But in my experience upon being in game, it is the most stable the servers have ever been. I haven't had any lag at all, which makes me think that the servers aren't really functioning potentially at max capacity. I think that they're still holding back on the max capacity of the servers in order to try and maintain the highest level of stability as it possibly can. And because of that, the population is suffering with these queues. Because I can promise you, the last fresh start, the servers did not hold up like this, and there was probably more people on that server. We haven't had anything that was like the 4.5 Kadam event where the whole server lagged for 15 seconds at a time for a whole hour. We haven't had anything on that scale, so it's a little bit confusing as to how it can be so stable yet be considered at max capacity as well at the same time. They have also very much so kept their words to no pay to win. All right, they didn't sneak anything in at the last second and go, ha ha, we got you. No, it's legitimately stayed pay to win free even post launch. There's been nothing that's been added in to the marketplace that was snuck in, nothing like that. So I'll give them kudos there as well. For the most part, they have been responsive to things that have been happening in game, out of game, things revolving around people's requests for transfers or other things with the classes or the people's packs. Not as much, but in terms of the things that have been going on in the game, they have been responsive to looking into things and trying to get them fixed as quickly as possible for the overall population. All right. Now those are what we're gonna call the good parts. Now we're gonna really bite into them here, right? The really bad things that have been really apparent with Unchained so far is the dailies is the first one. There are way too many dailies, and it's at the point, and part of that is the Arc Pass. It's at the point where you're almost at a spot in the game where the dailies are mandatory, and you don't really have a lot of time to do all these other things. Part of what made Archeage such a great game in the past was having the freedom to quite literally do anything you wanted and still be able to progress in that methodology of being able to do whatever you want. You don't have that now. There are things that you have to do that the game makes you do if you want to progress at an even remotely decent rate. Haram dailies are mandatory. Like, if you skip them, you fall behind dramatically. Your Arc Pass is mandatory. I'm not really sure where they got the idea that increasing it to 17 dailies over 12 would make things better. All that did was add to the amount of dailies that we now have to do every day, because you have to progress your pass as quickly as possible so that you can get the rewards on that track, because labor is the reward on there. Labor is one of your biggest gating currencies in this game, one of the biggest gating factors of this game. And if you are able to get more labor before other people and all this other stuff, it lets you progress faster. It allows you to accomplish things more quickly. And it's really important to do, for somebody who doesn't do the Arc Pass. Like, the Arc Pass is mandatory. If you don't do the Arc Pass, you are missing out on honor, labor, diligence, which contributes to more labor and other things that you can buy that you can only get through the diligence shop, and no other way, be it in-game methods or what have you. So we're at a point right now with it where it is mandatory to do your Arc Pass. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. The bad thing is how much there is. You've got Diamond Shores, Exalock, Sun Gold, Reedwind, Western Haram Mountains, Eastern Haram Mountains. You've got CR, you've got GR, you've got Halcyona that you've got to do, you've got Kadam that you've got to do. And then when you have these events go on, like Abyssal and Luskas, you're going to have those to go do as well. World bosses, DGS, there's all these things in the game that you have as these dailies that give you rewards that you need. Like, you can't skip Halcyona. It gives you a crate of 20 infusions. Like, it's too valuable. It gives you a bunch of honor. There's just so many things about the game now that are mandatory. And I think it's really important that instead of increasing the amount of dailies that we do, because even if the system gets moved into a weekly system style, 84 dailies that you have to complete, that's a lot of kill quests. That's a lot of things that are going to be really frustrating because of the amount of teleporting you have to do, because of the way the quests function with sending you out to the sea, sending you to Roria, sending you back all over the place. You're consuming Hearthstones at an exponential rate that you never have before. It was great for the Hereafter Stone market. Sorry, I said Hearthstone earlier, wrong game. Hereafter Stone market. It just, right now, the game with how it is, people only have so much time to play the game every day. And I'm not saying that, oh, well, boo-hoo, people who play more or should be able to progress faster. I agree. If you have more time to play the game, you should be able to progress faster. But I don't think it's very fun of a game, very flexible of a game, very free of a game, freedom of a game, when you get in and you only have X amount of time and you are locked into doing X, Y, and Z no matter what, because it is mandatory in terms of what it provides you. That's not what Archeage used to be. Archeage used to be truly like freedom MMO sandbox style, and a lot of the sandbox elements are still there. It's just that the theme park, you know, design of do this, do this, do this because the game's telling you to, is so heavily integrated into it now that those sandbox elements often are more of an underlying surface than what they were, where it was the sandbox. Now it's kind of just on the bottom underneath this concrete layer of theme park, which is really unfortunate. So personally, I would say that going forward, the Arc Pass, and I feel like the community should really push for this, is have it be the weekly system, but have it shortened so much. Make the rewards higher on it, increase the XP on it, maybe make the activities that are in it more difficult, or take more time individually. But 84 is so much. Like, if you shorten it down to, say, I don't know, what it was before, 12 in a week. You have 12 activities that you can complete in a week. None of them are repeatable. That way you don't get any recycling world bosses or dungeons, anything like that. And if you want to truly progress your Arc Pass, you have to do them every week. But you don't have to dedicate all of your time to it. You shouldn't have to dedicate a large portion of your gameplay to doing these Arc Pass dailies. It's really difficult to do all these other activities like trade packs, arenas, PvP, farming, Leskas, sailing, just going out on the water, exploring, all these things, achievements, when you have all these other mandatory activities. So dailies are the biggest one. It's really egregious in that aspect of the gameplay itself. Another thing that has definitely been an issue has been the AFK kick timer. The AFK kick timer is clearly not working. Whenever you run around Ostera or anywhere in the world, really, all of the courthouses have people sitting in them not being kicked. And as long as you have something that is holding down a key on your keyboard, you can stay in the game. There is no true AFK kick timer. If you go down into Mirage Isle, there's probably 100+ people running in circles on their mounts in various places of Mirage Isle. So the automated method of the AFK kick system is there in the sense of if you are genuinely AFK for 15 minutes, it will remove you. But if you are using any sort of system macro, a key being held down on your keyboard, anything like that, it bypasses the auto kick, and is making queues worse. All right, queues are clearly not going down at all. So I think, you know, maybe, I don't know how difficult it would be, how feasible it is for them to maybe get somebody who logs into the game every 3 hours, goes through the zones and finds these people who are auto running, AFK'd in the courthouse, and mandatorily, you know, and physically, you know, not mandatorily, but physically kick them out, like physically remove them themselves, you know, input the command, you know, log out, like forcibly remove their characters from the server because they're clearly not in the game and they're taking up spots in the server. That's going to be the one for the AFK kick. Now, hindsight 2020, I know a lot of people are talking about the world bosses right now and their abuse with the system, and this ties into what we talked about earlier about the Arc Pass, and I probably should have said it there. The Arc Pass probably should have remained off until they got the weekly system put into place, because with the way the queues have been, the disconnects have been, people who haven't been able to get in on a consistent basis versus those who have almost literally stayed in the game 24/7 due to methods of staying in the game, their Arc Pass is like fucking light years ahead of anybody who's been trying to legitimately get into the game every day through queues and everything. People have missed out on so many Arc Passes, Arc Pass quests, Arc Pass Gold, Arc Pass Labor, everything. They are so far behind on their arc pass compared to other people. And it's not that they didn't have the time, it's that they spent all of their time in a queue. All right? And that's not the player's fault. It's not the player's fault that there is a queue on a server, on servers that have a lock on them. That's another thing. I don't understand how there can be a lock on a server for population, yet there's still so many people who can't get into the server. I'm going to transition this into my next point of the servers is either the servers need to be unlocked or they need to get character transfer going. It's honestly pretty unacceptable of this situation that a lot of people are in right now. I've never personally experienced server locks from Archeage. I played 3.0 fresh start, 4.5 fresh start. 4.5 fresh start was only one server. You couldn't lock the server. 3.0 fresh start, there was only 2 servers. None of them were locked. They never locked any of them. People just had queues. So this whole server locking thing is new for me as well, and it's not something I'm really a fan of. Like, if there's a server that people want to be on, okay, because right now the issue that they have is people are stuck in queues, people are upset about queues, and people are upset about not being able to play with their friends on a server because of the lock, and not being able to transfer off. Okay, you have people who want to change servers to help with the queues, but they can't because they lose the $80 that they invested in the game. Now, somebody said something about that they're transferring the packs, but only if you hadn't already committed the pack to a character, which is, that's a little obnoxious in my mind. Just grant them the rewards on another character. They spent the money on it, and it's not their fault that they can't play, like their friends can't play with them, and they can't play with their friends because they decided to put a lock on the servers for the first time. If people want to play on a server and it's going to be crowded, let them be upset about the queues because there's that many people wanting to play on it. Don't have people be upset about the queues and lock the server and not allow more people to be able to play on it. Like, people need to be able to transfer off so that they can go play with their friends or guilds and not lose what they have worked for already and what they have paid for already, or they need to just unlock the servers and let there be a queue, because the queue isn't going away at this rate unless they fix the AFK kick timer as well. The queue's not going anywhere. And right now you're gonna be looking at some server instability. I'm basing the lock off of, they're doing the locks based off of how many characters are on a server, like made on the server. There's a lot of people that have characters made on Tyrannos, Wind, and Istris that aren't playing them. They just put their character there, they're an extra character slot there, so that it functioned as a placeholder in case they had to go to a different realm because the one they wanted to play on was full, or they had friends who they couldn't get into. But then they opened up all these extra servers, which isn't helping the problem. People still don't want to leave their server because they lose their progression, they lose their gear, they lose everything. They lose what they paid for with their costumes and their credits that they invested in. Maybe not their credits, the credits are account wide, but all the costumes that they maybe bought already, and now they don't have any credits, right? It's not really fair to ask the players who trusted you and invested in you to tell them that they have to go somewhere else if they want to play with their friends because you locked the servers. And they have to lose their money because of that. That's not the player's fault. That is not their fault. So I really do think that it should be priority number 1 to get character transfer service up and running, or they need to just unlock the servers and let people be in queue. If people want to play on an overpopulated packed server, let them. Then that's on them. Then it is their choice to keep sitting in that queue every day, right? There are people who would rather sit in that queue, wake up 2 in the morning when there's almost no queue, get their character in so that they can play on the same server as their friends and their guild and their community. So I think it's something that needs to be vocalized about, not in a manner that the communities so tend to do on Twitter and in the Discords, but in a constructed manner. Put it to a poll vote. Ask them. Be like, look, Gamigo, everybody voted. They would rather sit in an unlocked queued server than not be able to play with their friends because the servers are locked. Those are the ways that people need to approach things and address it. Now, the last thing is an in-game thing, and it is something that's going to start to become really problematic soon, and that is the crime. And it's just the game is almost non-conflicting, like, at all. It's actually really boring in a way, because you have multiple raids going out to these events like CR and GR, and you can't even fight your own faction to try and fight for tags. Like, you can't even contest world bosses against your own faction because the raids aren't big enough. All right, you can only fit 100 people, but you've got 300 people out at CR. Everybody's trying to get tags on the mobs every single time, and they can't because it's split up so much, and you don't have the option of flagging up and fighting over the mobs or fighting over the bosses, because you'll go to jail for a whole week if you do that. That's just too much blood. It's not worth it. And, you know, it's happening with world bosses as well, especially when you are going to have things that have a monetary value like 50 gold tied behind them, which I know this is going away. The 50 gold is going away, but it's still going to have a monetary gain in-game, that people can't fight over it because they go to jail for too long. I would say that's the second thing that really needs to be looked at. You know, people can't, we can't contest anything. Nobody can contest anything, because nobody wants to go to jail for the entire day, entire week, however long it is. It's been it's actually been way more toxic in the sense of the game's PvP of same faction has been resorted down to people just moving the bosses with a farm cart left and right. Farm cart, farm cart, farm cart, farm cart. There's no PvP. Nobody's fighting because people don't want to go to jail. It's the risk is not worth the reward anymore. That was the whole point of the crime system before, was that it was a risk versus reward. And now the risk is no longer worth the reward in any capacity. Especially since you can go to jail even in a peace zone now because of the bounty cloak. It grants an ability to send people to jail even if they are in a peace zone, which is really kind of stupid. But you know, that's just me. So that's my take on stuff. There are things that they have been doing. Gamigo has done well. They have been really transparent with stuff. They have been communicative. It hasn't been necessarily what people want to hear, but they have been communicative. The servers are stable. Because the servers are stable, I do think that there is definitely room for more players to be on them. But you know, the game is running very well. The servers are populated. The game is alive. There are people who want to play. There are people who want to play the game, but they can't because they're waiting, hoping that a server becomes unlocked so that they can play with their friends. All right. And it's just kind of wild right now. And I do sympathize with people who are not able to play with their friends. I was fortunate to be able to get onto the server with my friends, and my guild, but I know a lot of people have not. And there are a lot of people who watched me play the game for the first time, coming from different games, and they're like, wow, this actually looks really cool. Like, you know, I want to check it out. And they want to come play on the server, and they can't, because it's locked. And they invited their friends, and now their friends can't play, because they weren't able to get on the server with them either. And it makes the game not fun, when you can't play it with, you know, the people you want to play it with, which is really lame. But that's all for now, guys. I really just wanted to share my feelings, my view on things right now with the game. It's still fun. It's still Archeage. I still love it. but there are definitely a lot of things that need to be addressed and looked at in the meantime. And it's important that the community, you guys, everybody, is very vocal about what you want and the state of things, because if you rely solely on, just screech tactics, that's not going to be well received, and you can't rely on, streamers for it either. We don't necessarily have say in stuff. I mean, a lot of us, like, I can't speak for other people, but for myself, I play the game because I like it, and I stream it because I like interacting with you guys, and I like making content for you guys that helps you. I don't really have say in anything. I'm not affiliated with Gamigo or Archeage in any sort of partnership whatsoever. I know some people think I am, but I'm not. So, it's up to the community to really be vocal about the things that they're upset with. So, speak up, guys. Let me know in the comments what qualms, problems you have with the game. What are things that you feel like they need to look at that I didn't already go over? Leave it in the comments, and, let's hope things turn around for the better. Things are in still a pretty good spot server-wise, but we'll see for how long that lasts. All right? You guys have a good one, and I will see you in Aranor.